Writer alongside JJ for The Rise of Skywalker, Chris Terrio, did an interview, and some of his answers were really good. So I want to talk about those in this video.
You're fulfilling your destiny.
First, and I know a really huge complaint by people is they're upset that the sequel trilogy seems to be taking a piss on Return of the Jedi and taking away from what Vader and Luke did. So I want to share the quote first by the co-writer, where it says, yeah, no, that's not what we're doing. Everything that happened in the OT is still intact. So he said on that, of course, the sacrifice of Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi and bringing balance to the Force, we still had to honor that, and I think we do honor that in the film. We don't take the end of Return of the Jedi lightly at all, because it is one of the most beautiful moments in any film, really, and seeing what Vader does for his son. Return of the Jedi was the first movie I ever saw in theater, and I remember just being rocked by what I saw in that moment, because it almost never occurred to me as a kid that the bad guy could cease being a bad guy and be a good guy. That moment when Vader lifts Palpatine was a genuine shock to me, and it's full of truth and beauty. We had to be careful about that, but if you look at some of the lore of Palpatine and the Sith, and the way that George has embedded ideas about the Sith into the mythology of Star Wars, there are ways the presence of the character can still cast its shadow in the future. I guess I'll leave it at that. So if you are still up in arms that the sequel trilogy is just shitting on Return of the Jedi, he has been very adamant. No. This is not taking away from Vader/Anakin. This isn't taking away from what Luke did. No, this is just a continuation of that. Interestingly, he also talked about when they decided to bring Palpatine back in episode 9. Oh geez, I should probably steer away from specifics on that stuff until after the film comes out. Then I'd love to talk to you about it in detail. I'm afraid anything I say about it would give away some plot point, and I'm not as fleet of foot as JJ at avoiding stuff. But what I can say is we felt that this story, these 9 films, were a family saga. We decided pretty early on that we wanted to really think of this as the Skywalker saga. And from the beginning, the chess game has been between Palpatine, Sidious, and the Jedi, specifically the Jedi as represented by Anakin and the Skywalkers. So we were convinced some way or another Palpatine had to be a presence in this film. And I talked about in another video how JJ said they always knew at some point Palpatine had to come back in this sequel trilogy, so it's nice to get a second confirmation on that. And Palpatine being the main villain in all 3 trilogies makes sense. I know some people don't want that to be true, but it honestly does. Oh, he also addressed how we're going to learn more about the First Order in episode 9, because we've learned quite a bit about the First Order, but we don't have the complete picture yet. So on that he said, so we will definitely get some more. I think you'll find there are more answers in this movie about how all that came to be, because they are an extremely formidable military power that sprung up relatively quickly. So that's a thing that really interests me as a fan, because I saw The Force Awakens just as a fan, and I wondered all those things. So I came to this with questions. I wanted to know these things. In some cases there were answers, and in some cases there weren't, and we got to craft answers. Okay, so this next part is fascinating because you know we've gotten a lot of mixed reports about how much the sequel trilogy was planned, with some people saying, oh no, every director got to write their own story, and then others saying, oh no, we always had this overarching plot. And then you have people like Adam Driver that has said, hey, for 6 years I've known Kylo's final fate. When you leave Empire, as you say, this information has been dropped on you with, I am your father. But you also have the cliffhanger about Han. You know he survives the carbonite process. So you have the 3 most important characters, Leia, Han, and Luke, will have big questions we're asking about them. So definitely there was a more natural narrative springboard going into Return of the Jedi than going from The Last Jedi into The Rise of Skywalker. But that said, it caused us to have to be more creative about certain solutions. I feel if we hadn't had some unexpected developments in The Last Jedi, we would not have come up with the solutions that we did for different things, which I hope are more interesting than anything we would have done. As you say, I saw The Last Jedi as an audience member, and just like anyone, I thought, what's going to happen next? Chris also touched on how the new characters in the sequel trilogy are basically trying to live up to the prior generation, the greatest generation. And we kind of saw that in our own world. We had the generation that fought in World War II. They were considered the greatest generation. And then the generation after that, not so much. Sorry, baby boomers. You definitely aren't the greatest generation. Actually, right now, I'm throwing all my eggs in the Generation Alpha basket because holy shit. Poor little guys got birthed into a shit show of a planet. Good luck. All right, lastly, I want to talk about Chris talking about Lando coming back. Ignore the fact that I said talk twice in that sentence. Okay, this is what he said about Lando coming back, sorry. Well, one of the ideas that JJ and I talked about early on was the idea of Rey and Finn and Poe having to live up to the greatest generation. And that feels like it's anxiety, but also an opportunity that's in the film right at the moment when Rey's eyes light up when she hears about Luke Skywalker. You can see she has grown up with these ideas of great figures in her head. And so the question of this film is, can this generation live up to the greatest generation? Can we do the kind of heroic things that they did? So when we began talking about that, the other surviving member of that generation is Lando. And he's just someone beloved by both me and JJ from our childhoods. And when Billy D was game to do it, we thought we'd be crazy not to work with him. And just the sheer thrill of sitting in your screenwriting program and writing the word Lando and then writing lines beneath it, that alone, as you can imagine, sends shivers up your spine. And also there's the pressure and nervousness. How do you write the words of a legend? Because you never write a character as though they are a legend. Or you just shit on their character from the OT and make them learn nothing. Sorry, I had to get that jab in there. So from this interview, what do you think? Are you believing them when they say they're not taking away from the end of Return of the Jedi? Do you think this is just them trying to please fans and it's gonna suck with episode 9? And what do you think about everything else that I talked about in this video? Ooh, are you excited for Lando? I am, as long as they don't kill him. Just don't kill him.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe for more Star Wars videos.